When we had the Old Testament reading this morning, we read the promise, I will come to my people and I will redeem them. And faithful Simeon has spent his whole life waiting for that promise to be fulfilled. And at some point, God has said to him, Simeon, I will not let you die until the promise has been fulfilled. Simeon is beginning to doubt the veracity of that promise. He knows that he is very, very close to death. But on this day, the Spirit says, Simeon, go up to the temple. And so Simeon goes to the temple, and of course he is looking for a sign from God that God's redemption is coming. But all he sees there is a poor couple carrying with them a little child wrapped up in rough clothes. And Mary and Joseph going into the temple looking for a priest, and all they find is this old man stumbling towards them. But somehow the Spirit is there. And the Spirit speaks to Simeon, and Simeon walks up to this young couple whom he has never seen, and they certainly have never seen him before, and he holds out his hands and he says, let me hold your baby. A natural request. A strange request in a strange place. The old man says, let me hold your baby. And we know that there is within all people this natural desire to touch a newborn child. I can tell you, I go out to many seniors' homes and preach and visit people in them. And if ever you take children or a baby into a senior's residence, it's the most remarkable thing as you walk down the hall with that child, the hands go up and they want to touch the baby, as if touching the child will somehow bring new life or hope or joy into them. And of course it does, and they are right. And Simeon puts his hands up and says, let me hold your baby. I wonder what Mary and Joseph would have thought at that moment. They are refugees in a strange place, far from home, and here is some strange old man saying, let me hold your baby. But for whatever reason, Mary reaches her arms out with the baby Jesus, places him into Simeon's hands. Simeon holds the baby. He pulls back the cover from the baby Jesus' face. And then he looks in awe and wonder and absolute amazement. And he begins to remember the promise in Isaiah. And he looks down at that little child, and all of a sudden something moves within Simeon's heart, and he looks up towards God, and he looks at Mary and Joseph, and he says these words, Lord, now you can let your servant depart in peace, for I have seen your salvation, the promise of Isaiah, the promise that you would come and save your people. Oh God, now I can die in peace, because everything you said you would do, you have done. And Simeon, who had been preparing for that day his whole life, like we prepare for Christmas for weeks on end, he was expecting something to happen that would turn his whole life around 180 degrees and send him off in another direction. And on this day, the Spirit called him into the temple, and he saw the young couple, and he held the child, and that thing for which he had been waiting happened, and he said, Lord, this is it. Now I can die in peace. We know that there was also a very elderly woman. Oh, I better be careful here. Anna was only 84 years old. Let's say she was approaching middle age. But at the time, 84 would have been considered old. No more. 84 is the new 50, okay? And Anna, along with Simeon, said, yes, this is the Messiah. Nations will rise and fall because of him. And then Simeon handed the child back, and he was gone. What did Simeon see? Because whatever Simeon saw is the thing that we are all supposed to see at Christmas time, the thing that changes everything in our lives. What did Simeon see that flipped his life around 180 degrees? What did he see that was so stupendous and wonderful and marvelous? And I'll tell you what Simeon saw. You need to know what he saw. Because if you see the same thing, your life will also be changed around. I'll tell you what Simeon saw. Didn't see anything. Didn't see anything that he hadn't seen 1,000 times before. He did not see anything with his eyes that you and I would not have seen, or that you and I have not already seen. He didn't see anything spectacular or strange or wonderful. The little baby Jesus wasn't glowing like a 1,000-watt light bulb to differentiate him from any other little child that would have come into the temple on that night. He wasn't emanating some strange energy like a vibrating cell phone, so that when Simeon touched him, he began to shake and said, whoa, this child is really different. Didn't see anything that was strange or different or spectacular or showy. And I'm telling all of you that because if you are waiting for God to show you some spectacular sign before your life is turned around, if you are expecting God to show you something marvelous or strange or wonderful or weird, then you will wait and wait and wait. And your life will never, ever change. And you will never make those decisions that you need to make about your life and about Christ. And you will never have that complete turnaround that sends you in a new direction. If you are waiting to see something miraculous and strange and wonderful, stop waiting and realize that Simeon didn't see anything like that. He saw a little baby wrapped up in rags. That was no different than any other little child. And what happened on that night did not happen outwardly. It happened within Simeon's heart. He had been waiting 80 or 90 years, expecting something spectacular. But on that night, the Spirit came into him and said, "Here it is, Simeon. Little child, the power of God is in this child. God loves this child. God comes into the world through a helpless child. God comes into the world through every human being who has a compassionate heart and feels the pain and suffering of others. Here it is, sin. And in that moment, which to anyone on the